So after Facebook, you started Social Capital, or what is now called Social Capital. What have you learned from all the successful investing you've done there about
Well,
investing or about life
yeah.
or about running a team?
If I'm very loath to give advice because I think so much of it is situational, but my observation is that starting a business is really hard, any kind of business, and most people don't know what they're doing. And as a result, we make enormous mistakes. But I would summarize this, and this may be a little heterodoxical. I think there are only three kinds of mistakes.
Mhm.
Because if we go back to what we said before, in the business, it's just learning. You're exploring the dark space to get to the answer faster than other people. And the mistakes that you make are three, or the three kinds of decisions, let's say. You'll hire somebody and they're really, really, really average, but they're a really good person.
Oh, yeah.
You'll hire somebody and they really weren't candid with who they are, and their real personality and their morality and their ethics only expose them over a long period of time. And then you hire somebody and they're not that good morally, but they're highly performant.
Mhm.
What do you do with those three things? And I think successful companies have figured out how to answer those three things, because those are the things that, in my opinion, determine success and failure.
So it's basically hiring, and you just identified 3 failure cases for hiring.
But very different failure cases and very complicated ones, right? Like the highly performant person who's not that great as a human being. Do you keep them around? Well, a lot of people would err towards keeping that person around. What is the right answer? I don't know. It's the context of the situation. And the second one is also very tricky. What about if they really turned out that they were just not candid with who they are and it took you a long time to figure out who you were? These are all mistakes of the senior person that's running this organization. I think if you can learn to manage those situations well, those are the real edge cases where you can make mistakes that are fatal to a company.
Yeah,
That's what I've learned over 11 and a half years. Honestly, otherwise the business of investing, I feel that it's a secret. And if you are willing to just keep chipping away, you'll peel back enough of these, layers will come off and you'll see it. The scales will come off and you'll eventually see it.
I really struggle with, maybe you can be my therapist for a little bit, with that first case, which you originally mentioned, because I love people. I see the good in people. I really struggle with just a mediocre performing person who's a good human being. That's a tough one.
I'll let you off the hook.
Yeah.
I think that those are incredibly important and useful people. I think that if a company is like a body, they are like cartilage. Can you replace cartilage? Yeah. But would you if you didn't have to? No.
Okay, can I play devil's advocate?
Yeah.
So those folks, because of their goodness, make it okay to be mediocre. They create a culture where, well, what's important in life, which is something I agree in my personal life, is to be good to each other, to be friendly, to be good vibes, all that kind of stuff. When I was at Google, just like the good atmosphere, everyone's playing and just, it's fun, right? But to me, like when I put on my hat of like having a mission and a goal, what I love to see is the superstars that shine in some way, like do something incredible. And I want everyone to also admire those superstars, and perhaps not just for the productivity sake or performing or successful company sake, but because that too is an incredible thing that humans are able to accomplish, which is shine.
I hear you, but that's not a decision you make, meaning you get lucky when you have those people in your company. That's not the hard part for you. The hard part is figuring out what to do with 1, 2, and 3.
Yeah.
Keep, demote, promote, fire. What do you do? And this is why it's all about those 3 buckets. I personally believe that folks in that bucket 1, as long as those folks aren't more than 50 to 60% of a company are good. And they can be managed as long as they are 1 to 2 degrees away from one of those people that you just mentioned.
Yeah.
Because it's easy then to drag the entire company down if they're too far away from the LeBron James, because you don't know what LeBron James looks and feels and smells. And, so you need that tactile sense of what excellence looks like in front of you.
Yep.
A great example is if you just go on YouTube and you search these clips of how Kobe Bryant's teammates described not Kobe, but how their own behavior, not performance, because there's a bunch of average people that Kobe played with his whole career, but their behavior changed by being somewhat closer to him. And I think that's an important psychological thing to note for how you can do reasonably good team construction. If you're lucky enough to find those generational talents, you have to find a composition of a team that keeps them roughly close to enough of the org. That way, that group of people can continue to add value, and then you'll have courage to fire these next two groups of people. And I think the answer is to fire those two groups of people, because no matter how good you are, that stuff just injects poison into a living organism, and that living organism will die when exposed to poison.
So you invest in a lot of companies. You've looked at a lot of companies. What do you think makes for a good leader? So we talked about building a team, but a good leader for a company. What are the qualities?
I when I first meet people, I never ask to see a resume. And when I'm meeting a company CEO for the first time, I couldn't care less about the business, in fact. And I try to take the time to let them reveal themselves. Now, in this environment, I'm doing most of the talking. But if this were the other way around and you were ever raising capital and you said, Chamath, I'd be interested in you looking at this business, I'd probably say 8 to 10 words for hours.
You just listen.
Prod. I throw things out, prod, and I let you meander. And in you meandering, I'm trying to build a sense of who this person is. Once I have a rough sense of that, which is not necessarily right, but it's a starting point, then I can go and understand why this idea makes sense in this moment. And what I'm really trying to do is just kind of like unpack where are the biases that may make you, fail. And then we go back to you. The thing that Silicon Valley has the benefit of, though, is that they don't have to do any of this stuff if there's momentum, because then the rule book goes out the window and people clamor to invest. So one of the things that I do, and this is again back to this pugilism that I inflict on myself, is I have these two things that I look at. Thing number one is I have a table that says, how much did we make from all of our best investments? How much did we lose from all of our worst investments? What is the ratio of winners to losers over 11 years? And in our case, it's 23-1 on, billions of dollars. So you can kind of like, you can see a lot of signal. But what that allows me to do is really like say, wait a minute, like we cannot violate these rules around how much money we're willing to commit in an errant personality. The second is I ask myself, of all the other top VCs in Silicon Valley, name them all, what's our correlation? Meaning, when I do a deal, how often does anybody from Sequoia, Excel, Benchmark, Kleiner, you name it, do it at the same time or after? And vice versa. And then I look at the data to see how much they do it amongst themselves.
What's a good sign?
Well, I'm at zero, as virtually close to zero as possible.
And that's a good thing.
Well, it's not a good thing when the markets are way, way up, because it creates an enormous amount of momentum. So I have to make money the hard way. I have to, because I'm trafficking in things that are highly uncorrelated to the gestalt of Silicon Valley, which can be a lonely business. But it's really valuable in moments where markets get crushed, because correlation is the first thing that causes massive destruction of capital. Massive. Because one person, all of a sudden, with one blow up in one company, boom, the contagion hits everybody, except the person that was, not. And so now those are like more sophisticated elements of risk management, which is again this pugilism that I inflict on my. Nobody asks me to do that. Nobody actually, at some level, when the markets are up, really care. But when markets are sideways or when markets are down, I think that allows me to feel proud of our process.
But that requires you to think a lot.
A lot.
Outside of the box. It's lonely because you're taking risks. Also, you're a public personality, so you say stuff that if it's wrong, you get yelled at for
constantly
for being. I mean, your mistakes aren't private.
No, and that's something that has been a really, really healthy moment of growth. It's like an athlete. If you really want to be a winner, you got to hit the shot in front of the fans. And if you miss it, you have to be willing to take the responsibility of the fact that you bricked it. And over time, hopefully, there's a body of work that says you've generally hit more than you've missed. But if you look at even the best shooters, what are they? 52%. So these are razor thin margins at the end of the day, which is really, so then what can you control? I can't control the defense. I can't control what they throw at me. I can just control my preparation and whether I'm in the best position to launch a reasonable shot.